Hi everyone, it's Aga. Today we're back for a tier list video. Basically, what's strong, what's less strong, and what's not very strong in raid versus raid. Just to be clear, this is a tier list for creeps, and specifically for raid versus raid. It's not for small groups, not solo, not duels, it's only for raid versus raid. Right, so here you have different icons. Just a quick note. The Defiler in green is for healing. Here it's for its role. Damage and debuffs. The War Leader is pretty much the same. And for the Warg, you'll have the Warg Flyer here and the Warg Shadow here. For the ranking, S means broken. It's completely OP. That's when the character's really too strong and deserves a nerf. Just to clarify here, I'm giving you my impression, my point of view. Of course, not everyone agrees on everything. You're free to make your own judgment. I'll give more details when I place the character in the different categories. So SR, that means it's broken. A is when it's very strong, not broken, but still very strong. B means it's strong. You can easily use it in raids, no problem. C, that's when it starts to be average. You're not a burden to your team, but it's definitely starting to be average. And when it's D, that's when it really becomes difficult to use. Often, people don't want to take you on a raid. Let's get started straight away with the Defiler healer. The Defiler is a character who's very strong when it comes to healing. They mainly heal with heal over time, in case you're a PvE player or a beginner. It's a bit like the RK healer for the Freeps. In my opinion, it's a character that really suffers from a lack of survivability, especially when it comes to survival abilities. What do I mean by a survival ability? A survival ability isn't a healing spell, it's anything that will... spells that allow you to buy time against damage so you can restore your health. For example, bubbles, or types of damage reduction. Spells that make you untargetable. For example, the Spider, she has her ability where she goes underground, where you can't target her. Alright, so for me that's a survival spell, an escape ability. So, the Defiler then, he doesn't really have that. And I think he's a character who really shines in raids, more than in other formats. Because in raids, you won't necessarily be targeted first. You'll have other characters, like the other Defilers, the War Leaders, the Spiders who play well. They'll come to protect you and take some of the damage. You won't always be the focus. So for me, the Defiler heal is for raids. That's where he is at the moment. Of course, when you're watching this video, if you're watching it a year after I've released it, everything I'm saying might no longer be relevant. So be careful when you watch it. For me, the Defiler in raid versus raid is a character I'd rate as A tier. He's really very strong because you'll be able to take some of the healing pressure off the War Leader. You'll be able to put heals over time on your whole team. You'll be able to rotate healing packs. You'll be able to blend certain dots and above all debuffs from the opposing team for your whole group. You're the only creep character who can do that. That's a very good point for the Defiler, and you also have some very interesting buffs for your team. So for me, the Defiler, I'd put him in A tier. Afterwards, some might say B, because he doesn't have much survivability. But I think in raid, we can put him in A at the moment on making this video. Next, we'll move on to the Red Defiler, for me. He's more of a debuffer than a pure DPS. Why do I say that? It's not that the Defiler can't deal damage. It's that when you're playing in a group or in a raid, you're useful to your team. Because you bring something that others don't. Otherwise, you're not worthwhile for the team. If everything you do, someone else can do it and better than you, why play this character? And not another one? I think you'll agree with me. There you go. For me, his strength is being able to debuff. Certain stats like armour, heals in range, maximum health, block chances, all those sorts of things. You'll be able to debuff them, and generally better than the others. Creeps. You also have a buff of over 10% extra damage on damage over time effects. When you put that on your river or your spider, it's very powerful. The debuff from the Defiler is a bit different. He's got the Defiler heal, but worse, he's very squishy. On top of not having any survival spells, when you're in debuff mode, you don't have your heals. You hardly have any heals, so you're even easier to kill. The Defiler, or the debuff, for me it's the same in red. In raid versus raid, that's where he really draws his strength. He's also very strong in duels, but this isn't a tier list for duels, so we won't go into detail. Still, he's a character who's very strong in raids. That said, you can also play without him. He's not absolutely essential either. There are other characters, like Wargflyer for example, I'll come back to that in a bit. There's the Spider who can apply a few debuffs as well. There are other characters who can nerf heals. There's the Reaper who has a heal reduction. There's the BA who has one too. The Defiler's debuff is a real asset for your team when played well. But again, it's not absolutely essential. I think I'd put him in B tier. He brings debuffs that others can't provide. He does his share of DPs, even if there's someone else better than him. He brings his own advantage, but he's not absolutely essential either, compared to a heal Defiler or other classes we'll see later. For me, for the Defiler, whether as a debuffer or a healer, to climb up the rankings, he would need 1 or 2 survival abilities. That's just my opinion. It's only my opinion, but I think that the Defiler in Heal, instead of the bubble, which is placed on one person and is channeled, so it can be interrupted very easily, should, like the LK healer, have a group bubble. But not a bubble that reduces damage, rather a bubble that gives you temporary health to absorb the damage for a while. I think that's something that would work much better with the character. Next, we move on to the Spider. The Spider is a very versatile character, probably the most versatile of the cripples. It's a character that offers both support and damage. You have high damage as well. You have very good debuffs and very good crowd control. You can slow down an entire raid all by yourself with your trap that you place on the ground. For me, the Spider is essential in raids. You need at least a few of them. It's a character that brings a lot to the table in many situations. It's a character that's not so easy to take down. In raids, even more so, because you have the skill where you go underground, where you can't be damaged unless you've already been hit by damage over time effects. In raids, you're usually being healed, so you don't really have to worry about it. The big advantage of going underground is that you can't be targeted. Nothing can be done to you as long as you're underground. You can also use your controls to reposition yourself. It's a very strong character who can stall for time, deals good damage, especially to targeted areas, and applies strong controls and good debuffs. These debuffs stack with those from the Red Defiler, for example. In my opinion, it's a very, very strong character in red. I'm not going to say it's broken either, because the damage can still be made up for on the flip side. Overall, there is heavier damage than yours, which is normal because you bring a lot of debuffs and extra control, so it's only natural that you don't have the highest damage in the game. So I'm going to put him in A tier. For me, A is where he belongs in raid versus raid. Next, let's move on to River. Now River, at the time I'm speaking to you, is probably the best DPS in the game. He has very good area damage, very good single target damage, and he does a lot of burst. So what is burst? Just to remind you, it's the damage dealt in a single hit that you inflict on your target. It's the opposite of damage over time. It's the opposite of what I saw with the Asperger. But with River, you also have very good damage over time. River is also a character who tanks well thanks to his passive, which reduces all incoming damage by 20%, both tactical and physical. You have a spell, for example, Reactions to Defeat, which can reduce the damage even further. He's a character who deals a lot of damage, tanks a lot, and synergizes well with the War Leader's Mobilize. You have immunity to control effects in combat that lasts quite a long time, 9 seconds at the time I'm making this video. You can boost it with your trades. 9 seconds, I'm not sure, maybe I'm talking rubbish. I'm a bit unsure, but you do have immunity to control effects. For me, he's a character who's really strong in raids. For me, he's essential. He deals massive damage to the entire opposing team. He can be hard to take down if he's well supported. He's really a very strong character. I would be quite tempted to place him right between A and S tier. Between very strong and broken. He's not broken either, he's not unbeatable. But I still think he's stronger than Spider. I'll be tempted to put him between the two. But anyway, we'll put him in A tier. I'll put him in A, that's fine like that. Next we've got BA. B is a character who's very squishy. If you're playing him in red, play him as White Ant. For the tribe traits, stop playing him as Crashan. In Crashan, you'll be a burden to your team. We won't be able to save you if you take a massive burst to the face. BA is a very squishy character who doesn't have any survival abilities apart from a bit of healing. But in raids, that doesn't even count. When it comes to tactical damage, you're really very vulnerable, especially against tactical damage. You'll need a lot of healing from your allies, and you'll often be focused by the opposing team. Nevertheless, the Black Arrow is a character who is genuinely useful in raids for their monstrous single target damage. And also for certain forms of crowd control, you have a single target slow, which is, in my opinion, the best ranged single target slow on the Kree side at the moment. You have a trait that allows you to boost this ability, and it's really very powerful in raids. This will allow... Speaking of this trait, make sure to equip it. It will allow your rivers to stay on your targets more easily. It will stop the rivers from running around aimlessly for ages, trying to catch up with the target. That's your job, lads. And also a rain of arrows that you can upgrade. It will allow you to root everyone you hit with your rain of arrows. these are the two very interesting abilities of the build-in raids. Build as its users, but it does suffer from being rather sticky. I'm going to use it in raids. I'll still use it in BA as well. I don't see it below average, so I'll put it in B. Yeah, B's good. I think if we were in a small group, maybe I'd put it between C and B. But in raids, if you've got a solid lineup and you're well coordinated, you can still last quite a while in fights to do your job in terms of damage. The Wargstalker class, often referred to as the Wargflyer, in my honest opinion, is quite possibly the most criminally underrated and overlooked character class for raid versus raid combat on the monster play creep side of the battlefield. I've actually made videos about it on my YouTube channel, you can go and watch them if you like. I've personally commanded numerous large-scale raids from the back of a formidable Wargflyer, and to be honest, it was quite an experience. It went very well. The Wargflyer is obviously squishier than a Reaver, but you bring a huge amount of control over enemy targets. You've got some rather interesting debuffs and quite a few interrupts as well. And if you set up your traits properly, play with plenty of resistance and damage reduction, choose the improved flyer in your class traits, and pick traits that boost resistance in your tribe traits. Well then, you'll absolutely be able to do the job in a raid. A route that lasts for 8 seconds if I remember rightly, during which the opponent can't move at all. And you're immune for the duration of your control's channeling. You're immune to most forms of control, though not all of them. If I recall correctly, for example, the fear from bear running can interrupt you. For example, anything that's a route, anything that's... Generally speaking, you're immune. If you want to play Workflyer in a raid, bear in mind that your role won't be to deal damage, even though you can do some. Your job will be to interrupt your targets, apply crowd control and a few debuffs. Above all, it's a control role to make it easier for your team to deal DPS. This is a point that's very underestimated. Often people play Warclyer in raids purely as DPS and they don't apply the right crowd control at the right moment. Personally, I consider it a class. The Warclyer is very effective if you're on voice chat. I know there are quite a few people who don't join voice chat, but try to be on voice chat, at least with the people in your tribe. So you can synchronise your crowd control. You'll see that when you synchronise your crowd control, targets go down very quickly. So, personally, I'd be tempted to place the Warflyer somewhere between B and A. But I'll still put it in A because, in my opinion, it's truly a very powerful character. In raids, when all the conditions are met to make things easier for it, when you've got plenty of healers, when you're on voice chat, when you're synchronised, when you've equipped your traits properly, when you understand that your role is to provide crowd control, a few debuffs, interrupts and not damage, it's a class that's very strong. Unfortunately, it's very underrated, and a lot of people are good with their Warg, but don't know how to play it as part of a team. Especially in flyer mode. For me, it's a class that's really underestimated. Give it a try one day, you'll see. It's not bad at all. As I said, there are 2 gameplay videos on my channel at the time I'm making this video. You can go and watch them, they're mainly flyer gameplay. And you'll see that it's still effective all the same. Right, so now we'll move on to the Warg Shadow. So, the Warg Shadow, personally, is a class 1 really, but unfortunately, you'll often be refused entry to raids. even sometimes in groups, because in fact you're very squishy compared to the flyer. And the Warg Shadow is more of a damage dealing role. That said, I've already played with War Shadows in raids. And War Shadows, again, they're not just DPS, they also have a scouting role. They can give you information about enemy positions without being spotted. Honestly, they're useful. But it's true that in team fights, I rather agree with what most people say, unfortunately. It's not ideal for me to admit it, but you've got to be honest. It's true that the Warg Shadow in raids is a bit too squishy when you're in big team fights. Especially if it's raids where it's 20 versus 20. It's complicated, it's really very complicated. You'll get targeted very quickly. So, as I'm making this video, they've nerfed Vanish and Sprint. When you sprint in combat, you can be slowed during your sprint. You can be controlled. It's really a bit too easy to take you down. You won't be able to build yourself tanky, because otherwise you won't deal enough damage. And as a shadow, that's not good. You need to deal damage. But then, don't forget that War Shadow is strong in raids, is that it can bring some very interesting crowd control. You've got a silence for tactical characters, which is very powerful. They can't cast 3/4 of their spells for a few seconds. You can force them to use a mark. That's very powerful. You've got an ozone fear that's very powerful. You've got a flame you can place on the ground that nerfs healing. If, for example, you've got a work flyer who roots your enemy in the area, you're going to nerf the heals quite significantly. You've got a few spells that are very useful for your team. Unfortunately, your survival spells are too weak. You're too squishy overall. So the Shadow Bow, I feel like putting it in C tier. Because, as I said, there you go. Its scouting role is very interesting, its fear is very interesting, and its silence as well. When you hit people from behind, you deal good damage. But there are too many problems. In my honest opinion, I reckon they should give it a significant buff to make it feel quite a bit more durable and resilient during combat, or maybe increase the sprint a bit, do something so it can be played in raids. In terms of ranking, to be purely objective, if it's a raid where you're 10 versus 10, 12 versus 12, or maybe even 15 versus 15, then C tier. On the other hand, in massive raids where there are more than 20 of you, 24 versus 24, sorry lads, your character's rubbish. It pains me to say it, but it's rubbish, it's unplayable. Small raids of 10 to 15, that's C tier. And in the really big raids, it's D tier. Raids with more than 20 is just not possible. For a laugh, we'll put it in C tier, we'll be kind to the Wart. Shall we move on to the War? Leader heal. The War Leader heal, for me, is currently the best healer in the game on the creep side. You've got really strong area heals, really strong single target heals. You can cast your spells instantly without casting time. You've got really good buffs with your banners. You're still quite hard to take down because you've got a shield. For yourself that reduces damage by 90%, which can save you from a burst if you're being focused, without needing a Naughty leader to shield you. It's very strong. Your mobilize is very powerful as well. Let me remind you that you can combine it with ambush. It's the mobilize from the world leader DPS. It's very strong. In raid versus raid, I'll be inclined to put it between A and S. Somewhere between the two. Yeah, I'd be inclined to put it. In smaller raids, from 10 to 15, I'd be inclined to put it between the two. In really large raids, more in A actually, I'm gonna put it in A. And in fact, I'll put it next to the Defier. That'll be simpler. I'll be inclined to put it between the two like that. It's very strong, nothing more to say. We'll finish with a War Leader. Normally it would be a buffer. For me, it's a bit like the equivalent of the Red Captain. But right now, as I'm making this video, it deals monstrous damage. In Rage, it can be hard to take down because it's got its solo bubble. It can provide a bit of healing, but that's just a detail. But on top of all the buffs he can give himself and his team, he's got a really, really high DPS. I think he's just behind the river. He hits harder than a Spider, a BA, a Work Shadow, or a Red Defiler. That, at a push, is normal. The War Leader is my main. I really like this class. To stay objective for many, at the moment the class is broken. For me, it's S tier in Raid vs Raid. Solo, in duels or in small groups, it's a different story. But in Raid vs Raid, you'll have your allies helping you, giving you extra buffs, putting up bubbles for you. On top of that, you've got a bubble for yourself that makes you very hard to kill, you've got massive damage, huge buffs for you and your team. For me, it's the class at the moment. It's completely broken in Raid vs Raid. I've already had raids where, between my bubble and the auto War Leader's bubble, I was focused for a whole minute. That's 60 seconds, a full minute, and the opposing team didn't manage to kill me. Personally, I think they should nerf its raw DPS and increase the buffs it gives to itself and its group. Like the Raid Captain. When he attacks, I think there should be more buffs for the team. I don't know what exactly, what kind of buff, but buffs for him and his team. And a bit less raw damage directly. With some of his raw damage, he even hits harder than the Reaver. I think that's over the top. That's all. A little share list video. I've given you my point of view on the current meta in raids. Whether it's the smaller raids, 10 to 15, or the big raids, 20 and above. I'd completely understand if you don't agree with some things. Maybe some of you will say that the War Leader hill is at the top, or that it's lower, that I'm not the War Flyer, that it's rubbish. I'm sharing my opinion with you, based on my hands-on experience. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, ask away. I'll be more than happy to answer them. We'll catch up soon for a new video. Let me know if you'd like the version for duels, for solo play, or for small groups.